Hello, YouTube. Today, greed spread into the stock market, and we can clearly see that here on the tape because the range is wide, and we are closing right at the low of the day. We are up by, I think, from low to high, we went up by nearly 2%, and then we gave it all back. And what's so interesting is that this still looks very similar to our this is our March low, sorry. So this looks really similar to the green circle, which we have over here, and very similar to what we're seeing now in October. So, like I mentioned, we went into greed, and that is almost exactly when the market sold off. The second we got into greed, we ticked back down to a slight reading here at 55. As we mentioned before, what's going to be so interesting as we now look back at the charts is we ascended by nearly 300% on the fear and greed, going from roughly 18 up here to about 55 and even higher. So what actually happened, and where do we go from here? So what I want to show you is actually the notes that I shared with our group this morning in pre-market, and also the extra notes from after the video yesterday, because I mentioned three scenarios where we could gap down and either gap down pump up, gap down prop, or gap down flush. And here are the notes that I shared with our group this morning. After a big thrust up, we need to see what happens on this open. We're going to gap down and unsure. If the bulls really want this is a great buying opportunity at the open. The third bullet here is also really notable. If we're starting to fade, we likely just need to lose the low of the day on SPY and QQQ. So QQQ actually printed a daily lower low and then snapped up all the way. SPY actually has a tight inside bar. So both notes actually played out here. And after the first, was really like the first 15 minutes, it was very clear we were going to go higher. And then we got some juice from the Bank of Canada because they slowed the rate hikes and move. Markets hope Fed will follow. As a reminder, right now, the Fed is currently in a blackout period, and they're going to come out with their economic decision tomorrow. And that is so important because we had the Bank of Canada today, just after the open. We got the ECB tomorrow, interest rate decision. What are they going to do? I don't know. And then on Friday, we've got core PCE. I also forgot we got GDP for the preliminary coming out tomorrow. And oh boy, were there some big bets being put. So that's really what it comes down to. If you want to learn more about our private group, click on the link in the description to come trade with me, the person you're watching on YouTube. So looking here to our earnings whisper before we go back to the charts, we got a pretty good amount of earnings out now. So when we look at the chart or the technicals, do the fundamentals align? Microsoft actually roughly in line, but guided down. Alphabet, miss, guided down. And then Meta, miss and guided down. So now we got Apple and Amazon, or the big boys, coming out tomorrow with all of that data. And all we need to read for Meta here is really just the headline. Meta shares dropped 12% on weak fourth quarter forecast in earnings miss. Is it really a big surprise? Yeah, it's not. This company stinks. I don't like Facebook at all. What's also really interesting is that we're seeing that the put to call ratio is roughly 1. We're actually getting bullish flow. However, individual orders are coming in massively huge for the downside, meaning hundreds of millions of dollars being bet against BABA. We got tens of millions for SPY, BABA, NVIDIA, Goop, right? Netflix, Wayfair. What else we got? Almost everything. All these large orders are pretty much all bearish. And we do have some bullish ones also coming in as well, but it's 50-50. So if we're 50-50 and the fear and greed is inside of neutral, what does that tell you? Well, there's probably a lot of potential to go one way or the other, either into greed or all the way back down into fear. If we look here to our timeline, it would not be unusual for us to get to 60, right? 60 here back in March. Oh, that's the period we're comparing to now. Yeah, starting in March, roughly at 18 as well. Look at that, 18 to where? Oh my goodness, to 62. And we're only at about 55. So that's really where we could go to. I think maybe 62, maybe higher here at about 67 if we match what we did in July. But I don't think people are really ready for this, up or down. Everyone's so cocky instead of trying to focus on what's actually happening. Another way to look at this as well is by just looking here at the total option flow. This is going to be week to date. We note that we got $2.4 billion coming in short for SPX or input flow. And then for SPX calls, we've got 1845 or 1.8 billion. So slightly bear tilt for SPX here. SPY crushing it though. 1.2 bill coming in hot for SPY. Only about 227 million for SPY here on the puts. BABA flashing bigly, as we just pointed out. But otherwise, it's looking a little bit muted other than those. Right, Tesla coming in here as well. roughly 110 for Tesla calls, 190 for Tesla puts. So, right, take your pick. You're going to find the story you want. You're bearish. You're going to be like, oh, look at the puts. You're going to be bullish. You're like, oh, look at the calls. So there you go. I'm going to circle back on this a little bit later too, but I want to just also maybe remind people of what you get by just watching the YouTube video versus what you get after. So if you look at the timestamp here, roughly 9:26, this is where even me, as someone who's been doing this for more than 15 years, I still have a really hard time. Why? Stupid emotions. Emotions are something everyone has, and we just cannot avoid them. So what I just want to point out here is the timestamp. Note this is going to be Pacific time. So this is 12:25 in New York. So 12:25, where is that? Let's actually go to a 5-minute chart. At 12:25, I sent out a warning, basically saying time to check yourself. And what happened? Well, that was 386 all the way down to roughly where we are now. It's only about a 1% drop. But that's really where the high of the day was formed. And then we started to fade. Notably on the 15-minute chart, where we start to see these upper wicks here. So we start to note that we're over the 50 DMA at 385, but we just can't really form a higher high. And I'm like, I really want to short this, but I told myself I was not going to. I wanted to have a bull bias. I traded the breakout. I made my daily target, but I still felt that FOMO. I'm so happy I didn't. Would have been a beautiful trade for me all the way back down here to where we are now. And it's really what we talked about when we look here at our scenario. What is it? Scenario. Oops, let me go back here to our scenario 2, which is really the green circle where I think, like I mentioned for a while, we're going to go up, and then we're going to come right back down. And this move down right here is less interesting to me than trying to catch the bottom, not the absolute bottom, but near the bottom, and then play to the upside. Why? Hey, if we're going to go to 415, that's a whole bunch more than making 1% to the downside. So I'm really focusing really closely here too, whether or not we're able to carve out that higher low and where that's going to be, because that could be like all the way back down to our 50 monthly, our 200 weekly. Why? Well, our low is here at 348. So anything above there is like a higher low. Well, did we already form our higher low? I don't know, right? We got 1 and 2. Over here, we got 1 and 2. Volume still bullish, but there's some competing signals now. So what this really comes down to is how you define success in your trading or investing, meaning, do you trade? Do you invest? And what does that mean for you? Because as I mentioned here, I got a feeling people are or will be moving the goalposts with emotions running hot. Just a nudge to check yourself. Great commentary from our group. What I want to focus on now is how that could have been easy for us to see if we looked at the fear and greed, the velocity of the movement. We went straight up. So we go straight up. And when we finally hit that resistance, yeah, we would expect for it to sell off. That's very normal. And what people are expecting from the Bank of Canada to feed through to the Fed, I think is a little bit misguided. I believe the Fed's still going to go higher, but we got that knee-jerk higher where everyone's like, oh my God, kumbaya. The Fed's going to not do what they said they're going to do, right? They don't need credibility. They're not the Bank of the world. Yeah, Bank of Canada is not the Bank of the world. There's a very different tone between Canada and the United States. So now if we look here to SPY, keeping that note in mind that we mentioned before, I'm now going to delete everything and just purely look at this as if it was new. But we know it's not because we've done our due diligence. So as we look here, what do we know? We got a dub. So we got a short-term dub or short-term W forming here. We hit the resistance. What do? Well, you sell that. If you've been buying here at the bottom at 340, you sell. We're 40 points higher, for fuck's sake. So you sell that. You short it? Well, some people will, and they did. So what do we got? We got higher low, higher high, but we have an inverted hammer with bullish volume. Yikes. That's like, I don't know what to do. It also closed right on the day. Yes. So what's interesting here is that we've now touched the 50. We've digested the 50. So if we now reclaim it, it means that it could be sustained. For me, I need to see 2 consecutive daily closes back above an average to say that it is now a trend change. This is just price discovery. All we did was poke above, and then we sold off. So the bulls did advance us, but the bears were right there to meet them and punch them in the face. So as there is so much data coming out tomorrow, but also into the end of the week, what I want to focus on is going to be SPY, QQQ, and then we're going to look at 2 more quick charts, and then we're going to sign off. So as we look here, we got QQQ And what do we have? Well, at the open, we actually printed a daily lower low, which is part of what I said pre-market for what I was looking for. And then what happened? Well, where does most volume transact? At the open and the close. Where did QQQ get to? It got to basically yesterday's close, which is where people are like, oh my God, so big bull on Microsoft and Google, going to hold on, going to make big monies overnight. Boomtown, baby, let's go. They got a chance to get their money back, and they're like, yep, I'm cashing out. Some people initiate shorts, and then it self-fulfills. Volume is not elevated. It's just on par with previous days. Bullish pattern is intact, but we are below our red line, or 380.21. So where are we going to go from here? I don't know. Pressure to the downside is building up, but Meta's not really adding a negative follow-through just because we were already so bloody from Microsoft and Google overnight. So that's really interesting. And Meta's not the market. There are lots of stocks on the market. So 2 more quick charts. So here we get ES. We noted, again, I went through this in pre-market with our group as well. We got first resistance, second resistance, third resistance. But it's called the W in the making. So we get 1 test, we get our 2, we get our 3, W is formed. We break out on the 3rd test over the red line, check. Same thing happened here as we now look at our short-term time frame. So we have an uptrend and we held it. You might not think it if you traded wrong today. You're not like, oh my God, we're actually still trending up from the breakout. Yes, we are. However, what happened here as well was also classic. So I traded the breakout here yesterday, did great. Traded the breakout here again today, also did great. Why? Well, on the move back lower here, what do? We do 1, 2, 3 test and breakout. This is like really simple. If you have the patience to actually wait until the favorable opportunity comes and then you pull the trigger. It's really hard to sit at the screen and watch. Anyways, what's more important here is what we have going into tomorrow. We have a apex, which means we have an uptrend with a key area that are going to meet. That is where we get our apex, or it means basically a crossroads. We're either going to keep going higher and trend up, or we're going to go sideways, or we're going to trend down. So we're now having a little resistance here on the VWAP, but 3853 is like a big weekly area. So if we're going to continue higher, we should wake up tomorrow above 3853, and then that pre-market data is digested and we just resume higher. I could see that easily happening. If we're going to go lower, I could also see it happening. I just laid out my bear case. It's pretty strong. So what am I going to do tomorrow? I encourage you to click on the link in the description if you want to come trade with me and see my trade plan for tomorrow. Otherwise, there will be a video that queues up here in a moment where I walk you through my weekend plan, what happens when we get to the red line and what we do. And otherwise, I wish you all the best of luck into tomorrow, the rest of the week, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thanks so much.